Well, hello! It's the Holy Hour podcast. Yes, the bi-weekly all-cure podcast. Just a podcast devoted to the, awesome, legendary, lovable band, The Cure. So if you're into that kind of thing, welcome. My name's Gavin, and we got a great show for you today. If you've been following along with the podcast chronologically, you would notice that based on our album reviews, we're creeping up on a very, very critical moment in Cure history. And it's closing in on 1988, 1989, Disintegration. Dun dun. Yep, it's on the horizon. And while this is not the Disintegration episode that Donald and I will be discussing thoroughly, this is a little bit of the icing on a cake, or a little teaser, a little appetizer. We figured we'd try to milk this Disintegration era for as much as it's worth. We got another episode that's Disintegration themed, as well as the album one on the horizon. But I thought a cool way to also address this era would be to talk about integration. You remember integration, kids? Oh yeah, maybe some of you missed it, but maybe not. Some of you collectors out there definitely know what it is. But it was a box set of CD singles that they put out after Disintegration was starting to kind of calm down. So this is a little out of context. This was released in 1990. Didn't find an exact date anywhere, but it was 1990, and I'm assuming hard to tell when, because like Mixed Up came out later. November 90. And then I remember this came out when I was still in school, so I think like late, like spring, maybe early summer Disintegration. Not summer, because I was still in school. But 1990, and after the single of Pictures of You came out. So, it was 4 CD singles, so basically the singles of Disintegration all compiled together in a long box, much like the old original CD boxes would come in. But it was 4 of the cases of CD cases, the hard cases in one box, and came with a poster. It was a cool Disintegration era poster. The cover was the same as Disintegration, but it was purple. It was kind of like colored purple. It said Integration on it, and it was a pretty cool deal. And a lot of times when we do our album reviews, we get rambling, as you've noticed, and it's hard to get everything in, and a lot of times we want to talk about the B-sides a lot, but that's kind of the thing to cut when it starts getting into the super long stretch of the show there, and we have to trim something down a bit. Usually the B-sides are the first to go. Sometimes they've made it in, but I always feel a little bad because every Cure fan really loves the B-sides, I think, and they're a very special part to a lot of the Cure fans, like what we hold dear is certain songs of their catalog. A lot of them are the B-sides, and this was cool because it was a kind of a way that they compiled all the B-sides and the singles together for fans. And so we're going to look at Integration, and you can still get it online. A lot of them were really expensive at this point, like $50 somewhere. Saw one that was going for around like 30 something. Hard to tell what kind of condition it is. So it's out there. You can track it down if you're curious. But the catch, and one of the weird things with it, is they had the singles were all out. And then you had like the vinyl singles, like the 12-inch singles. So I had like a lot of those, and I had all the singles at this point, just the tapes, like a tape single. And so this was cool because I needed it, and like, oh my God, this has to happen. I want to get all these. I think I may even had like one of the compact disc singles, but didn't have all of them. I had all the singles. So a lot of these B-sides I already even had by the time this was coming out. So it was like kind of one of those collector things that you want to buy because it's a neat package, but you already had a lot of the songs on it, if not all of them even. But it was very stressful for me even then. And I think we were wrapping up 6th grade by this point, and I was like, how on earth am I going to get to the store to buy this, and I'm assuming it came out on a Tuesday back then, and my mom was like, I got it for you, don't worry. And I'm like, you're gonna mess this up, you're gonna end up buying Disintegration, I know it. And I'm like, it's a 4 CD box set, real big, all this. And so I was like, kind of had my doubts that she was gonna get the right thing or what, or just have the time to even pull it off. But sure enough, I came home, and my mom had gone out and picked up Integration for me when I was at school, and it was there waiting for me when I got home. So that was a very, very cool moment, and I was very excited to rip into it and get out that poster that, of course, went immediately up on my wall. We'll post a picture of it. It was kind of one of the ones from Disintegration era there, the photo shoots that you'd recognize. And yeah, it was pretty cool. And just having all those CD singles was quite a collection, but may have also been the start. And I'm kind of thinking now, maybe just because this was when I was really getting into The Cure. Like, I'd gotten into them at the end of Kiss Me. I'll say this a billion times all through these Disintegration ones, so apologies. But I got into them after Kiss Me was pretty much done, but no even hints of a new album yet or anything. That's where I was at when I got into diehard Cure fan mode. So this was a big deal, getting any kind of new releases, on the heels of actual Disintegration, and then getting the singles, and then getting this. So, but I felt like maybe this is around when they start putting out these things that are kind of a blessing and a curse, where it's these like singles, or like collector wise, it's awesome, but you really are kind of getting like the same things over and over, and you're just like, oh, really? All right, I guess I'll buy this just to get the one live whatever, and maybe Kiss Me had that with like that first aid kit and little promo things, and even this didn't seem bad. Like they really started to get a bit on my nerves during Wild Mood Swings era, when you're getting like the 5th Mint Car single or something. I'm like, come on, man, just put them all in one. Not really sure the reasoning for that. I think, it's meant to be out of kindness and just cool, more of the merrier collectible stuff, but on a certain level, you do kind of feel like you might be getting ripped off a little bit, just having to buy the same crap over and over, because Cure fans will. Don't we all secretly love doing it anyway? If you have the money, of course you do. So this was cool. I really got into the singles. Everyone loves the B-sides. So I figured we'd just kind of run through each single, and I'd give my 2 cents, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the Facebook threads or on Instagram, wherever, because I feel like a lot of opinions may vary, but maybe not. And this is weird, because I feel like with B-sides, like a lot of Cure fans, a lot of my favorite ones are the B-sides. And I felt like around Head on the Door, even the top, really, like arguably it starts getting to the point where that's when you start having the debates of, man, that song should have been on the album, or that's better than that song that's on the album. Why didn't they put that on there? And pretty much all those hold up, and Kiss Me had amazing B-sides, I felt like. And then even after Disintegration, Wish has some great B-sides, and even Wild Mood Swings and Onward. And I love all these B-sides for Disintegration, but I do feel like maybe they're just really good B-sides. I don't really feel like a lot of them are arguably could have been on the album or should have been on the album. And I don't say that even meaning that they're not on par with the other songs or good by any means. I mean it more as a testament of how great Disintegration is as an album, just because it is so perfectly, plotted, and everything on it is in the right place and feels like the most cohesive album ever. And I'll get into all that praise with the actual album review, but yeah, so I feel like these B-sides are kind of, this is a good place for them. They're all selected well to be B-sides, and even though I enjoy most of them, they're not exceptional. They're cool, they're good, but they don't really take the place of anything on Disintegration, I would feel. I think that's a fairly safe thing to say, right? If anybody else feels differently, definitely let us know your thoughts, because it is an opinion question or statement. So let's go back in time to when the single came out. Fascination Street was the first one, and I do believe these were all sold individually too. I hadn't quite converted everything to CD yet at this point. That's probably why I was still just buying the singles. But yeah, so I don't think this was any like grand reveal of CD singles. So these were probably all out. So that would have really sucked if somebody had already bought all four of them, and then this came out. You want the cool packaging and all. But anyway, Fascination Street, which we'll talk about more directly with the album, but for the single, we'll start there. And I remember getting the single for Fascination Street. The day I went to the mall to see Pet Sematary with my brother, and I did go back and check all the dates and make sure I wasn't mixing up any memories, but yeah, it was a big deal. It wasn't the day of its release, but it was pretty close. And strangely though, I remember there being snow on the ground, and this was like April, I think, so I don't know how the hell, maybe that's a weird mixed up memory, but anyway, just Fascination Street. I always liked the song. I think it's pretty likable from the start. But I do remember kind of almost liking Babel more when I got that tape into the car and really was kind of like pairing the two songs. I'm like, man, Babel's pretty rad. I kind of like Babel more because it had like the cool samples and stuff going on, and the cool radio frequencies in the back, and just weird baby samples, and it's a little more aggressive song too, with the whole shut ups and stuff, and it's cool. So I'm on board with the song. In time, of course, Fascination Street's way better, I think. So I've changed that thought pretty quickly. So I guess we're already talking about Babel. I don't know. I guess it's like a good. Robert Smith kind of quoted saying Babel and Out of Mind, the next song, are both lyrically kind of, you can tell they're about songs about losing your mind a little bit when it comes to the fame and attention he starts receiving, in particular around Kiss Me era and the success of the band. So there's a lot of that, and overall theme wise going through Disintegration in general, but these two songs seem to really focus on the I need to get out of the spotlight for a minute kind of feeling, and the downside of fame and success, I guess. But there's a funny story on the inside of Join the Dots. Well, kind of unfortunate and funny. But as we all know, with Lowell's condition around the making of Disintegration, he was going through definite hard times and not being the most, collaborative fella in the band. So he was passed out on the couch at one point, and Simon and Boris came in, and Boris had his dog, and they basically had the dog hitting the keyboards of what would be something Lowell would play, but it was just the dog putting its paw on the keyboard to get some background noise and such. And of course they're getting a kick out of that, saying, oh, the fucking dog's playing Lowell's part now. But it's pretty fucking funny though. So so the dog plays some keyboards on Boris's dog plays some keyboards on Babel apparently. Out of Mind, it's a cool tune, but kind of feel like it isn't really super catchy, and it's not super like weird or artsy or anything or deep, in a sense. So it's kind of just doesn't quite hit anywhere. So I think it's a perfect B-side. Hence why it's B-side number 2 on a single even. But I don't even really know what I could add to that one. It's got some good keyboard parts and stuff, like all the layers with everything Disintegration related. It's definitely recorded well and has some cool stuff, but never a song I was too crazy about. So sorry if I'm offending anybody's favorite B-side, but I would think most people would kind of be in the same boat with my thinking on that one. And then rounding out the CD single is a remix of Fascination Street. And this is weird because this is around maybe the first, maybe we got a little bit of that with Kiss Me, but this seems like it's really the big deal on all these singles, is that this is like what would eventually become the bulk of Mixed Up. Like all the singles have these remixes on them. And it's smart that they're calling them extended remixes, because they're not even so much remixes. Like very few of them have like dance parts added to the song or anything to make them like a whole new like a dance mix or anything. They're just kind of extended versions of the songs, and it's really, I don't know how I feel about them. And we'll talk more specifically about Mixed Up, but never a big fan. If I have the choice, I would rather listen to the 4-minute version of Fascination Street than the 5-minute 16 version. It's just kind of a little overkill. And in those regards, it's kind of cool when you do hear them not by choice, because it's like a longer version of the song. And if you are out somewhere and you hear like the long version of it, it's like, oh, cool, I'll get to hear, because they don't change them much. It's just like a lot of the parts are just isolated, and they'll just kind of like, it almost reminds me of and this is probably a terrible analogy, of like 90s like Boys to Men songs or something, that like they'd always kind of drive me a little crazy because the songs are so long, because everybody in the group had to get like their moment where they would sing something. Like boy bands and shit do that all the time, I guess, where it's like everybody has to have their like, well, then I do a verse, then you do a verse, and it's just like, oh god. So these remixes feel a little bit like it plays, and it's like, and then we just listen to the bass line for one progression, and then we listen to just the synth line for one part, and it's cool because you do get to hear each like little piece isolated, and you're kind of like giving props to every cool little riff and stuff. And especially for Disintegration, it works because there are so many cool little one-time things, or one little part, in these songs, that it's cool when they brought out and into focus there, and you can really spotlight them. But it does get a little like, all right, get on with it. Like some of them get super long, and it works better for some than others. The Fascination Street one I actually like a lot. More than the other three probably, but or other two, cause it has some cool stuff, and it's weird that has the little, you know what I'm talking about, which doesn't sound surprising, right? Because we all know that part, and sometimes they incorporated it into stuff, but the actual single version doesn't have that in it. It's we hear it on the remix, we've heard it on, I feel like live even, they've thrown it in there sometime. It's all over like every demo version they've ever done of it, and it's such a cool little part, but it's not, unless it's like super buried in there, but I don't feel like it's in like the actual single version of the song or on the album, so like the original version of it. So correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I feel like it's cool because it features that at least, and it has something a little different. And if I were to ever dance, I would like to dance to these songs, I guess, even though they still are, majority I feel like have the same beat and everything. So it's just kind of because it's such a great song. And I think that's kind of the bottom line, is you can do these extended versions and long ass remixes of each one, because the songs are so good that sure, I wouldn't mind listening to that for another 8 minutes. Why not, and all for it. So far, 1 for 1, Integration. Da-da-da-da. And that was the one that was released US. I don't even know if any of Integration, because of the whole single release thing in the UK was really weird, because remember they didn't get Fascination Street as a single, and Lullaby was the first one. And Lullaby didn't come out till later for us. So, pretty weird. I don't know if they even had anything that was Integration over there. Maybe they put it out and this was the first anybody saw of the Fascination Street single. So that'd be cool. Any UK folks out there, that'd be cool to let us know if you had Integration from the start. So I'm going to go next to single is a Love Song, because I believe that's how we were released to it. And so Love Song came out next, and this is the big hit, the big old climbing the number 2 single for The Cure, finally cracking that top 5 charts and getting the recognition they deserve with a big pop single for The Cure. And so this one starts out, all of them start out with track 1 saying it's a remix, but it's only like 1 second shorter than what's on the album. Not the extended remix or anything. I don't know what the hell they're trimming, and I couldn't hear any differences. So hard to say. I'm sure they just tweaked something barely, cut 1 single off, 1 second off of it to make it a single release. But or I guess this one was like 5 seconds somewhere. I don't know how or where, but I didn't catch it. But anyway, love the song. Love Song's amazing. We'll talk about that in the album, so stay tuned on that. Love Song Extended is the second track. So once again, we have the what will be Love Song on Mixed Up. I think I started to say that, but didn't really follow through, of how Mixed Up is weird because 4 of the songs on it, or 3, I guess, are already remixes from Disintegration. That's kind of cool, and that kind of explains why they did mixed up because they already had a lot of it already done. But you know, it's these weird just remix versions and extended versions of it, and yeah, I like the love song one mostly for the reasons that I said because it does have so many cool parts. You know, when you have that kind of the bass line is so amazing on love song that it kind of can groove for a little bit. You know, and it feels a little like you can appreciate the groove of it a bit more when you hear it in that extended format, and feels a little dancier somehow in this extended one. And when it isolates the guitar parts and stuff, yeah, you definitely hear it a bit more, and this showcases the cool layers. But yeah, if I ever have the choice or I'm making a mix or something, I always go with the one from the album. I would never pick the extended one probably, but who knows? You know, it's such a good song. Why not hear it? 6:18 versus 3 minutes. So let's see, the original one is 3:24. So that's almost double the length. But so anyway, moving on to probably the strongest B-side out of this whole batch is Too Late. And I love this song. It's really cool. I've kind of gone back and forth. Not sure where or what I was actually talking about Too Late. I know we did the episode on Join the Dots, so I probably babbled on about it on that for quite a bit. But yeah, it's a great song. It's one that's kind of like musically, I really love it. Lyrics, I kind of go back and forth. There's certain lines that I really love, but then it feels a little unfinished or something. I don't know. Some of it just doesn't really, like the whole like hat push straight and stuff. It's weird because it's like not a peppy song, not a happy song by any means, but it's not really overly like heart-wrenching or anything either. So I feel like it definitely would stand out in a weird way on Disintegration, where it could fit, you know, on, you know, Wish or something like that. If they just held on to it, maybe would have been a really cool one for Wish. It was a nice surprise one on this last 2016 tour that they played this live. As far as I know, never had played it leading up to that. So that's a big, whoa, what? So I think a lot of the love for that would be like just the fact that clearly Robert thinks highly of it too in the band there. And yeah, it's cool. That guitar part's just so awesome. Where it's if I'm ever trying to come up with like lead riffs or anything, I think I've unintentionally and intentionally nicked that riff probably in the top 5 of all like Cure ripoffs that I always go to without trying to deliberately do it, but you just end up going. So it's really good, really catchy, and it was cool reading about how this was like leading up to be a single. You know, definitely had like that single feel. Robert was saying, but once the album took shape and definite mood started to set in over the whole feel of the album, it was pretty clear to him too that this did not belong on Disintegration, which is kind of a shame because yeah, it really felt like it could be like a Friday I'm in Love kind of single almost, you know. So I don't know, and maybe that's why the lyrics kind of just fizzle out in the bit, you know, that aren't the strongest. But I don't know, I love the Catch Your Eye, like if I could just once catch your eye. That part's great. So yeah, really cool. I guess meaning wise it's kind of always a bit unclear with Robert Smith's lyrics, but it feels like kind of either just a straight up unrequited love or slight stalkerish situation going on maybe, or love from afar, or even maybe like a friendship where one person wants more than the other's open to or aware of. So who knows, but something's kind of sad and unfortunate going on there, but still a fun song. And probably my favorite, as I said, of all these Disintegration era B-sides. Cheers to Too Late. And then Too Late is followed up by Fear of Ghost. And it's been said that this was an original Roger idea or song. Hard to say who brought in how much or what, but this one's always kind of credited as a Roger got this one rolling. And which kind of makes sense. It's got some cool orchestral synth kind of thing going on more than the other ones. Cool song. I don't love it again. Strangely enough, while just kind of listening back again, I've always been kind of like with it. But I was reading the liner notes again of Join the Dots, and they'd say that Robert was kind of not happy with the original single release, so the one that would have been on this integration, because during the mastering phase of it, it didn't really get mixed right. He said it was supposed to be a 60s style song with a fadeaway that bangs back in real loud. And they screwed that up. He heard that the faders just totally pulling out at the wrong moment, because it is a weird song that like kind of pulls in and out, and now with the dun, 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 like, or the, and then pulls back out at weird times. Not sure I quite get the 60s, like, I don't know, like a Motown song. I'm not really sure what he's getting at with that, but just listening to back to back the original release, and apparently they fixed it for Join the Dots. And the Join the Dots one is like worlds better. It's so much cooler, just in the sense of how the mix is, where it pulls in and out, not just on like that opening kind of keyboard riff, but even I hadn't really noticed like when he starts singing, the music like almost pulls all the way back out, where it's like he's kind of up way more up front, especially for those such mumbly kind of quiet lyrics that it has, or just super like, and in the other mix it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever, he's just mumbling. And this one you really kind of dug in, and it was cool. So yeah, try that experiment sometime if you get bored listening to the original release of Fear of Ghost and then the Join the Dots one, and just notice how much better, because that really kind of made me like the song more, knowing that he said that, and really listening to the Joining the Dots one. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And the lyrics are really good, actually. So it's like one of those ones that we'll probably talk about in Disintegration 2 a few times there, where he gets so mumbly with all the piles and piles of reverb thrown on there and stuff. And I love when any band does that, where you have a mumbly song and you finally figure out what they're saying, and you're like, oh my god, those lyrics are actually great, because so many bands will do mumbly lyrics, quiet mumbly lyrics, and the lyrics are kind of crappy. So it's like, that's why you're whispering. But it's just so much better when the lyrics are like that awesome. You're like, why the hell is that so quiet? That's great. I'd be shouting those lyrics. But Robert can do that because he's awesome. So yeah, it's the way it goes. But it is kind of a, I don't know, has more of a kind of Kiss Me feel too, maybe. So it probably wouldn't have fit on Disintegration so much. But yeah, it definitely feels like a B-side. So another smart choice to keep that one off the record, I think. So yeah, that takes us to the end of Love Song CD 2. Let's bounce back to Lullaby then, which was the original release in the UK, as we said. Their biggest hit in the UK, as we've said in previous episodes. Number 4 pop hit, Lullaby. So once again, it starts out with what is pretty much the normal album version, even though they're calling it a remix. Again, I couldn't hear any differences, so let me know if you are aware of what has been tweaked or trimmed slightly. So track 2 then is another extended one. This one I'm probably the most anti on. I do not feel like this song needs to get dragged out like another 3 minutes. It's weird though. It's cool in the sense that this is probably the only one that I could notice a huge addition of something that's a little more dancier. Well, they kind of, I think they're taking out one of the little pluckier synth parts and putting the it's like kind of more of like a dancier keyboard riff there that sounds a little more electronic there and gives it like a core dance floor feel for sure. But still, I don't know if it really is necessary. And there's a weird cowbell going through this one that isn't in the other version, or else it's turned down super low, and that gets a little annoying, as cowbell and cowboys tend to do. So yeah, 7 minutes and 41 seconds, a little bit too much Lullaby for me, but great song though. So if I'm gonna have to listen to any song get stretched into 7 minutes and 41 seconds, I'll stand by anything of Disintegration. But yeah, I'd still go with the original version. So then, and I think this is why this single doesn't really have any B-sides, is because we got Babel and Out of Mind on Fascination Street, and that's what was on the B-side of the original single in the UK. So one of them was going to be short of some B-sides. So this had the remixes, and then they had the first of some live tracks that will start popping up. And it's Homesick and Untitled, and it's live from Wembley, the last 3 nights of the tour, and which, geez, that must have been like an amazing show, like to give a lung to see one of these nights, because that went on to become Entreat, the live album that followed up Disintegration too. So perfect Disintegration live shit, and all these live versions I think are awesome and almost on par with the album, even if the album didn't happen to be the greatest album ever recorded. So that being said, Homesick, probably my least favorite actual song on Disintegration. We'll get more into that later, but I like this live version a lot, and same with Untitled, the next track, which is amazing live and an amazing version. And I think the stagger out exit, especially live, like just fucking kills. That's so cool. Like anytime that they've played that and I see them live, it's just like, oh, that's so cool. Like when they just gradually leave the stage one at a time and come down to the last 2 parts, and that kills. It's awesome. So amazing song. Love the exit. But overall, this is all just kind of the weakest single, I think, just because it is a remix and 2 live songs. You don't get any real B-sides on it. Because the Pictures of You single that comes up next is pretty much all live stuff. And this was a cool, weird one. Pictures of You, the single mix is what kicks off this CD single, the final of the 4. And then we got a pretty long, I mean, this is basically an EP. It's like 4 live songs that would eventually be the bulk of Entreat. And so we got Last Dance, Fascination Street, Prayers for Rain, and Disintegration. So that's pretty rad. I mean, that they would just put out this pretty heavy, long EP version of a single. And by this point, I'll get the exact date later, but Pictures of You came out a pretty good chunk of time after the release of Disintegration. I remember it wasn't until like the next spring almost or something, it felt like. So I'll confirm all that before we get to the official one. But these again were taken from the July 1989 tour, the Disintegration tour, their prayer tour, if you want to get technical, which would become Entreat, and all of them amazing. I mean, apparently they didn't play one rough song that whole tour, I don't know, or especially the Wembley part of that. So if anybody was at those shows, I would love just to hear some personal stories. But yeah, it's a cool live single. I love like hearing all those. Prayers for Rain on this in particular, I feel like is, if I do make a mix for somebody, I tend to take this Prayers for Rain over the album version, even just because he does the crazy long rain and holds it out, and that's awesome. And you could just feel like the energy in the songs have a little bit more pep to them and stuff, and they're a little faster, I think, just have a little more aggression. Disintegration, the song, is just like super awesome on this, where he can just sing his ass off on it and it sounds amazing. And yeah, it's just a great representation of how cool they sound live. And up until this point, maybe, let's see, we had the Cure concert Curiosity thing from the Top era, which wasn't the best live album by any means. So yeah, they haven't really released anything to this point as far as live albums. So coming up on Entreat, this would be like definitely a huge thing for how awesome they are live, and they hadn't really captured that on any official release yet. So it was necessary at this time. Kind of inappropriate but funny side note that I have to, just addressing the Cure Pictures of You CD single, for whatever reason, my brother, who was in episode 3 maybe from super early on, went off to college and did dorm life for like a year or a semester, and had a roommate there, and he was doing the whole roommate thing, and took the CD with him, and they'd always sleep to music. I guess his roommate was cool with that, and and was sleep. I don't know why you'd choose a CD single to put on repeat and go to sleep to, because it's just gonna play over and over again like a DVD menu. But this is a pretty good chunk of songs. So anyway, they were going to sleep to this, and his roommate brought in a lady or whatever, and I guess he thought he was asleep or didn't care that my brother was in the room. So anyway, the roommate and this young lady start going at it, pretty hot and heavy, and my brother can't sleep, with that going on, and so and apparently this guy's just the ultimate lover going all night long. So my poor brother said he had to listen to this album or this single repeat like over and over and over, and he can't hear any of these songs now without thinking of that night that he got to pretend to be asleep and listen to his roommate's passionate affairs for hours on end. But yeah, I don't know, that's just weird. It's kind of a lot of weird stuff in that story, isn't it? It's like, what why were they, I don't know, college life, what can you do? But I don't know, could be worse, right? Imagine if you got stuck listening to like a 2-song single of some band you didn't even like. If you got to listen to 5 songs over and over again, not bad ones to have to listen to. As far as the single, Pictures of You, I do have to go on the record for my own testament that I can't stand the single remix of Pictures of You. Well, not that I can't stand it, it's still one of them, because Pictures of You is pretty much my favorite song in the world, and it has to be the long Disintegration version that doesn't feel long, even though it is 7 minutes and 24 seconds. But then they trim it down to 4 minutes and 45 seconds for this single, which you have to do. I don't blame them for it, especially if you're going to put it out as a radio single or something. You can't be playing a 7-minute long song. But yeah, it just never has the passionate like build up, and when you trim the intro and stuff, it's like, it just doesn't do it justice. You have to get the full thing, and I feel like it's just a little tease at this point. There's a little mini version of itself that's trimmed. It's too neatly trimmed. Like all the spacing and pacing of the song is just not right. So I am not on board with the single remix. I want the full long ass Pictures of You if I'm going to listen to it. Even if I'm making a mix, you cannot put the short version of just Pictures of You on there. I hate it. So anyway, but I understand why they did it. So I guess that wraps up the 4 actual CD singles. I don't know. So that leads me to Entreat, which is a bit tough. This isn't totally focusing on Entreat, but what a fucking great live album, and but I remember it was tough for me because I didn't really want to buy it when it came out, because even Entreat wasn't the full Disintegration album. It's like only songs from Disintegration, but it's not even the full album when they initially released it. So they put that out, and I remember I didn't even buy it on CD initially, because it was like I had 4 songs from this Pictures of You, and I had the other 2 from the Lullaby single, and then I think maybe it was just 1 other song, maybe 2, that were on there, and it still didn't have like Plain Song, I think it was, or something. So I always felt like an unworthy Cure fan because I didn't buy Entreat on CD. I was like, I got it though. I have the exact shit on a different disc, and I could even put them together if I wanted to. So it was a bit frustrating. Eventually, when vinyl kind of came back around, I was like, oh cool, I'll just get it on that, and it'll make me feel better in my soul. And even better so, with the deluxe reissue of Disintegration, you get the full version of Entreat, like meaning the entire album, as it should have just been from the start. So it all worked out well, but there were definitely a couple years in there where I think even Donald had Entreat and I didn't, and I was like, oh man, I'm the worst fan ever. But I had it, I just didn't have it. So I don't know if anybody else was in that boat, but there's a lot of kind of Cure moments like that where they put out these singles or something where you have everything on it, you just don't have it together on this release, and that's a part, because I am a collector kind of dude at heart, but I'm also a very rational man, and usually have some kind of budget to work with, and the rational side of me sometimes wins, where it's just like, I can't buy this, I have everything on it, and but then given the chance and the resources, I would totally collect anything if I really loved it and wanted to and had the ability to. I love collections and stuff, and that's why I always love just seeing people's like total insane Cure vinyl collections and stuff, where it's like you have every release from different countries and different. It's like, oh man, because yeah, if I let go of my controlled addictions, I would be in that boat for sure. But some people are some way, and I'm kind of lost in the middle, I guess. Like Arusha said last episode, she's not, a completist or collector in that regards at all. And it's probably safer to be that way, but there's a part of me that just wants to collect the shit out of some stuff. So anyway, that's why the internet's great, if you can stumble across a good deal, right? So I believe Integration is out there and all those formats too. If you do want to get the real deal, the old deal where it's half of it or whatever the hell, you can track all those down. I don't know if it was ever on cassette, but probably. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess that kind of leaves us where we are. We'll wrap up a little short on this one. Sorry, this was just kind of a drive-by sniff of Disintegration, but like I said, a lot of times the poor B-sides get a little overlooked when we do the album ones just for time's sake, and figure we just kind of take a look at the Disintegration B-sides and where we stand. And once again, I do love all these songs. I'm glad they exist, and from time to time throw them on and enjoy them thoroughly. But I do believe all the right decisions were made with compiling Disintegration and not including these B-sides on the actual album. There's nothing even debatable, in my opinion, that one of these could swap out. Like I said, Too Late's probably the strongest contender, but that would just sound weird on Disintegration. And what are you going to take off? Even if you took Homesick out, it just wouldn't feel right, So that's where I stand on it. I'd love to hear your opinion, so please come on over to the Facebook page, the Holy Hour Facebook page, and chime in on the thread there. That's a good spot for it. And you don't have to get hostile about it, but I would love to hear if you feel the same way, or if you feel like, yeah, man, take all that shit out, put in Out of Mind, So I'm like, all right, I won't argue with it. I'll try to see your perspective too. And go on over to Instagram and find the Holy Hour Podcast on Instagram, and you could chime in there too if you'd like. Integration is out there somewhere. Find it on eBay or Amazon or a collector's site somewhere. You're probably gonna pay more than you probably should for it, but isn't that part of the fun of collecting too? No. So if you want to write me, you can write me directly at gavinconner@gmail.com. We got Disintegration, the album review, coming up. And even before that, we're going to do a little teaser episode. Don and I have been listening to Disintegration for 29 years now. Good God. I've never listened to an album more in my life than I've been listening to Disintegration my entire life. Not a week goes by where I don't listen to that album probably. And I love it. It's my number one, not only favorite Cure album, favorite ever album. I think it's fairly safe to say it's the best album that's ever been recorded, right? No, of course everyone's going to argue that. But in my opinion, my humble opinion, it is the best album ever. So I got lots to say about it. Donald, of course, will try to drive me crazy and add his 2 cents. But like I said, we've been listening to it for 29 years. I want to figure out, and I found somebody that hasn't listened to Disintegration, maybe not even once all the way through. Probably not on purpose, but just never got around to it. So fresh ears in 2018. I'm getting a fresh ears opinion of Disintegration, and I'm going to talk and see why and what they think compared to my old ass ears that have been listening to it for so long. And then we'll compare what me and Donald think. So much Disintegration talk on the horizon. If it is also one of your favorites or your absolute favorite Cure album too, be sure to tune in. We can even try to put in some contributions if anybody feels super passionately that they want to contribute. Definitely send me a message, gavinconner@gmail.com, or through one of the websites. So we'll see you there. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. Leave us a comment if you want. If you don't, doesn't matter. They say it helps, but what does it help really? It makes us feel good though. So if you want to drop us a line, that's always fun. And we'll catch you next time on the Holy Hour podcast. Thanks for listening and listening to me, old Gavin, ramble on here. So go get integrated, and I'll talk to you soon. Talk hard.